sujuk with the shredded cheese.
People are coming into the cash and say, you tell me what you want me to eat and I'll eat. I'm just here to support. And that's beautiful.
An emotional roller coaster of a week ends on a high note. A popular Syrian restaurant is now back in business. For the owners of Sufi's, the week began with a difficult decision to close seemingly forever. But with support from both the community and another business owner, the restaurant is open once again. Kelda Yun joins us live from Sufi's right now. And Kelda, just a steady stream of customers all day there.
Absolutely. Now, Dwight, I was here this morning and there was a small line outside of people waiting for the restaurant to open, and it just got busier after that. A steady stream of customers through the morning and the early afternoon. I'm back here now. You can see behind me, super busy inside for dinner time. It's packed wall to wall, and that's not surprising given the overwhelming amount of support the Al Sufi family has received over the last couple of days.
I'm coming in now. Are you open now?
2 years ago, Brooke Lidbrook was the first person through the doors when Sufi's first opened. Today, she's happy to be the first again.
I love it here. It's like my happy place.
For a few days, she and other regulars thought they would have to find a new happy place after the Al Sufi family announced it would close because of hundreds of violent and racist threats.
I was really depressed. I thought, this isn't our community.
Why? Like, where does that come from?
The reason just angered me, and also I'm selfish. The food is really good.
The threats came after the son was identified as one of the protesters at a Maxime Bernier rally in Hamilton. A viral video showed protesters yelling at an elderly couple in attendance.
Two wrongs don't make it a right. So it doesn't matter what happens, no Canadian should receive death threats, and no businesses in Toronto or in Canada should shut down because of hate or intimidation.
Mohammed Faki is the CEO of Paramount Fine Foods. He has stepped in to help the family run the restaurant until they feel safe to return.
Thank you so much. Thank you. They look much better, they're smiling more, and they're feeling the support and the love of the community.
And while the family is still shaken by the threats, they are reminded of the love through this wall, now covered with messages they've received over the past week.
This is really the finale of a true Canadian story. This is a story of a refugee who came and really did well and then got attacked by hate and then got, surrounded by love.
I certainly actually believe very much in people showing love towards newcomers, showing love towards, loving Toronto for its diversity, which it's wonderful.
Now, members of the Al Sufi family, they are here today, supervising from the back room. And Mohammed Faki said that they would like to lay low for a little while, but he is hopeful that they will feel safe enough to return to running the restaurant themselves again. Now, the Al Sufi family, they have also reached out to the family of the elderly couple in that viral video, and he says the family is hopeful that they can reconcile over a meal at the restaurant sometime soon. I'll send it back to you, Dwight.
I think a lot of people would like to see something positive like that come out of this and happen. Thank you for that, Kelda. Okay, we're heading into the Thanksgiving long weekend, and you didn't think driving to Mom's for dinner was going to be easy, did you? Highway and subway closures gobbling up some travel time this weekend. Starting tonight, the Gardiner Expressway will be completely shut down until Monday morning from the DVP and Carlaw to Highway 427 and the QEW. This is part of a larger project to renew the Gardiner between Jarvis and Cherry Streets that will see construction continue until 2021.
It's over 1 kilometer in terms of length between Jarvis and Cherry Street. This phase of the construction will take place right through to early 2021. So unfortunately, the Gardiner will be reduced to 2 lanes in both directions during that period.
That lane reduction on the Gardiner will start this Monday, and the TTC is also going to be closing a part of Line 2 this weekend. Subways won't be running between St. George and Woodbine stations on Saturday and Sunday due to track work. Shuttle buses will operate between those stations, and on Thanksgiving Monday, the TTC will be running on a holiday schedule and Go Transit on their Sunday schedule. For our ongoing Safer Streets series, CBC Toronto is exploring the riskiest roads and intersections shared by you, our viewers. And today, a look at the area around Eglinton West Subway Station. It's where Allen Road ends at Eglinton, and pedestrians and drivers have trouble seeing each other. City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly was there to find solutions.
As the sun is slowly rising, cars are quickly flowing from Allen Road onto Eglinton Avenue West for the morning rush to work. But safely getting around this busy intersection can be tough for both drivers and pedestrians who are trying to make their way to the subway station that's right in the middle.
A little bit of a concern is, though, the blind spot when people are turning right.
Some people in the rush, well, they go and they don't respect the signals.
It's confusing for the drivers. And because the drivers don't make the move to turn right, the pedestrians are confused too.
This road safety advocate is bracing for the worst.
Pretty much every single time I cross the road, I watch someone nearly get hit. It happens every single day, every single crossing, sometimes more than once in one crossing.
She says concrete barriers and fencing around a construction pit for the Eglinton Crosstown make it tough for drivers to see around the northwest corner when they're turning right.
The way the crossing is signaled and set up, it's actually designed to be dangerous. It's unpredictable. There are really poor sight lines for drivers. The signaling prioritizes drivers as well, and it really sets things up so that pedestrians are not seen and not safe.
Wood wants to see a longer crossing time for pedestrians or a scramble intersection where people walking can cross from any corner while cars are kept out. She brought her concerns to Metrolinx, the provincial agency behind the Crosstown project. So far, the changes made include road paint and this bollard.
Pedestrians actually will drag the bollard out to the corner so to protect themselves, and the workers move it back.
Josh Matlow, the councillor for the area, says the intersection is downright dangerous.
What I've been calling for is for Metrolinx to provide either off-duty police or wardens to be able to assist with both helping people navigate safely, but also enforcing to make sure that people don't do things that are dumb and could put somebody's life at risk.
Metrolinx told us safety is a priority, and it does try to hire officers for certain issues, but often they're not available. Here in the morning rush, Wood says more needs to be done.
This is really dangerous. Like, this is really an incredible high risk. This is not unique to this intersection. This is a very serious issue in this city.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
A partial victory in court today for Greenpeace after it took on the Ford government over the scrapping of the cap-and-trade program.
It's a slap on the wrist to this government saying you acted unlawfully. The very first action this government took as a government was illegal. But also for future government, it means they can't come in and say, oh, we had an election, we can now just ram through whatever we want without proper consultation.
In a split decision and Ontario court ruling, the government broke the law when it scrapped cap and trade last year, but the court won't force Queen's Park to reinstate the program. Cap and Trade gave companies incentives to reduce carbon emissions. Greenpeace challenged the cancellation on the grounds the government did not hold public consultations before making the decision.
It started snowing styrofoam, and the whole neighborhood was wondering what was happening. It's not just a street. Like I said, it's all over.
Styrofoam pieces, big and small, are falling all over the neighborhood in Weston. What's the cause and why residents won't be getting much help to clean it up? Still ahead after a look at your weather. And the weather, Nick, is looking good, and we can tell by those double digits on that map behind you, buddy.
Yeah, no kidding. Temperatures a good 5-6 degrees above seasonal for the last couple of days, but here's a look at where we're sitting right now. Now, it says 16 degrees in Toronto. That's closer to the water. 16 degrees in Mississauga, 18 in Markham. Our highs, though, up around 19 degrees today. So if you compare that to the average of 14, we're a good 5 degrees above the average. Now, it has come with a lot of sunshine. However, we are tracking a little bit of rainfall that's moving in from southwestern Ontario. Now, the good news in all of this is that it won't be a washout for the weekend. It'll move through fairly quickly, and most of this rainfall actually happening through the overnight period. So let me time it out for you as we put this board into motion. Starts around 3 a.m. tonight, and then it tapers off by about 10, 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Then a little bit of cloud cover for the late morning, but as we head into the afternoon, we're back into a mix of sun and cloud, and that sunshine pretty much sticks around for most of the weekend. This, however, could bring a few showers up around cottage country, but otherwise for the Golden Horseshoe, we're looking at generally sunny skies for the better part of the long weekend. Forecast for the next 24 looks like this: 11 degrees tonight, light winds out of the east at about 15 kilometers per hour. We talked about that rain moving in. It ends by late morning, high of 13 degrees. That's pretty much on seasonal there, and winds picking up to about 15 to 30 kilometers per hour. We'll have your full long weekend forecast and long range forecast coming up in just a bit.
Thank you, Nick.
Welcome.
Now, given the good weather we're having this week, you can see why people living near Weston and Lawrence were recently surprised by what they thought was falling snow. It was actually plastic pollution piling up on their properties. No one has come to clean it up, and the homeowners are not happy with the city's response. Laura McQuillan went to take a look.
Mike Smith couldn't believe his eyes when he looked out to his yard earlier this week.
It started snowing styrofoam, and the whole neighborhood was wondering what was happening.
An insulation upgrade to an apartment building sent white plastic foam flying. People are finding it blocks away.
So you can see it even in spider webs. It's all over everybody's porches. It's just tucked around everywhere.
There are chunks of styrofoam this big just lying in the streets around here, but it's these tiny little particles that are in yards, gardens, on sidewalks and in gutters that have people in this neighborhood concerned and frustrated. Even as we stand here, pieces are falling from the sky, and it's all coming from this building.
My real concern is that it's all in the streets here. And so if you go down and you look in the gutter, take a shot of the gutter there, all of this is going to wash down and into the storm sewers and out into the lake.
We have all small kids, they're like, dogs are walking in neighborhoods. So we just want to be sure that it's not something that is going to affect to dogs and kids.
One expert told us that styrofoam can take years to break down, all the while leaching chemicals, including one that's been linked to cancer. We called and emailed the building's managers, but we didn't hear back. Mike Smith complained to City Hall.
If you litter, you can get a ticket. If you pollute an entire community on a wide scale, you think there would be some sort of, at least an investigation.
The city told us that its staff met with the property management company and the contractor after Smith's complaint, and they've agreed to use netting to limit the spread of the styrofoam debris and to vacuum the area around the building. But that's little help for the homeowners down the road, whose yards are now full of little styrofoam pieces.
Intentional or not, they've polluted an entire neighborhood. So what's the response there?
Laura McQuillan, CBC News, Toronto.
About 1,000 people have been forced out of their homes north of Los Angeles as wildfires burn out of control there. The fire started yesterday and have since exploded in size, scorching thousands of acres.
Within seconds, the house across the street was up in flames, and that's when I knew that there was nothing I can do. It happened so fast, you would never think.
Hardest hit is the area north of LA. Many roads and schools have been closed, and at least 24 homes have been destroyed. Thousands of others remain without power. The utility company has turned service off in some areas to stop down power lines from sparking more fires. The winner of the Nobel Peace Prize has been announced. It's going to the 43-year-old Prime Minister of Ethiopia.
It is a prize given to Africa, given to Ethiopia. So I'm so happy and I'm so thrilled.
Abiy Ahmed Ali got word in a phone call from Oslo this morning. The honor is in recognition of his work toward peace and international cooperation in resolving the border crisis between Ethiopia and Eritrea. His determination led to restored relations after 2 decades of hostilities. Abiy came to office in 2018, bringing in new democratic freedoms and a pledge to improve the lives of the impoverished. The Nobel news generating lots of buzz among Ethiopian and Eritrean Canadians today.
Oh my goodness, it's so excited because it means huge for the leader himself and our country as well.
Everybody was happy, not just Ethiopian, Eritreans as well.
I certainly feel very proud to know that he has gained such recognition for his act of peace. And just, it's nice to know that one of us has won a Nobel Peace Prize.
We spoke with members of both communities at restaurants along the Danforth. They expressed pride in the Prime Minister's award, some noting they didn't hold out much hope for peace between Ethiopia and Eritrea after such a long conflict.
Your voice needs to be heard. If you do not vote, it is not heard.
So vote, and then after that, follow up. Get angry. Keep this anger and passion with you and bring it every year, every day.
Coming up, why young people have the voting power this federal election. We'll bring you highlights from our CBC Toronto election town hall a little later in the show. Canadians who have already made up their minds about who they're voting for in the federal election can get a head start this weekend as advanced voting kicks off today and runs until Thanksgiving Monday. We asked voters who chose to cast their ballots early why.
Unfortunately, I won't be here like on the actual day of the polling, which is like 21st of October. And then I decided to come here and like vote in advance.
Because I'm not going to be here on the 21st.
We might be out of town, but now that we can go in advance, we have the liberty to make a decision at our time.
Now we have a chance of voting 4 days instead of 1 day. So I want to make sure my vote will count. So that's why I voted early.
And as many people head to polling stations this weekend, this organization is launching its own campaign to encourage Muslim voters to do the same.
We want the Muslim community to get out there and show that our voice matters.
The Canadian Muslim Vote launched its Muslim Vote Weekend campaign today. It's planned to hold Get Out the Vote sermons in over 100 mosques across the country, aimed at getting Muslim voters out to the advanced polls. Teams will also be knocking on doors, making phone calls, and hosting community events. The organization is expecting to reach nearly 300,000 Muslims today alone.
We're going to protect core services while we make government more efficient.
A four-desk promise from Andrew Scheer today. The Conservative Party has finally released their fully costed plan. Details on how they are going to balance the books in just 5 years after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
She plays with fire for a living. This Toronto fire artist has been at it for more than a decade. And other than putting on a spectacular show, safety is her highest priority.
I think I love it because it frightens me a little bit. I like the danger, I like bringing people together. I've always wanted to be a performer, so it was a really great niche way to find something that really spoke to me. So I always have a trained fire safety technician that stays by my side to ensure that any random variable that could happen is taken care of.
Scarlett Black has performed all around Toronto, and tomorrow she is one of the main acts at Canada's first Oddity and Horror Expo. The event, called Devilish Desires, is being held at the Poveras Community Centre. And a look into the life of Nelson Mandela. This immersive exhibit opened in Toronto for its first showing outside of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, taking visitors through Mandela's lifelong struggle for justice.
It's hopeful and yet disheartening, because when you look on the world stage, because the core theme for me is this man as a leader. To have a leader that was able to convince people that forgiveness and reconciliation was the way to go, it's mind-bending. Like, when you think of who on the international stage now is even a minute fraction of that type of leadership.
The exhibit includes interactive experiences with audio and visual displays and a tribute to Canada's contributions to South Africa's fight against apartheid. The exhibit will show at the Meridian Arts Centre until January 7th. We are learning more today about party platforms and what they could cost to implement. The Liberals and the Greens published theirs a couple of weeks ago. This afternoon, it was the Conservatives' turn. Andrew Scheer says his plan will balance the budget, even turn a surplus within 5 years. And he revealed where he plans on getting the tens of billions for his campaign promises.
We're going to get it from corporate welfare. We're going to get it from foreign aid from countries, relatively well-off countries that don't need Canadian taxpayers' dollars. We're also going to eliminate things like March Madness, where government departments spend hundreds of millions of dollars in the dying days of the fiscal year. We're going to make sure that government real estate is allocated responsibly so that the government isn't wasting money with empty office space all over the country.
Scheer says he will make life more affordable for Canadians by doing away with the Liberal carbon tax and by introducing a host of tax credits on top of a universal tax cut. Justin Trudeau is criticizing Scheer for not only what's in the Conservative platform, but for how long it took to release it.
I think we've seen very clearly that Conservatives are proposing $53 billion worth of cuts, deeper cuts than even Doug Ford is putting forward. And that's why they waited until Friday night of a long weekend at the end of the election before sharing with Canadians their plan to cut services.
The NDP also released its costed platform this morning. Leader Jagmeet Singh says his fiscal plan is prudent and transparent. The platform shows $35 billion in new spending next year. The party says they'll pay for it by increasing taxes on the wealthy and increasing the capital gains tax, which would affect more than just rich Canadians.
You know that families need help now, and that's why we put forward some urgent priorities that we would work on right away. That includes investments in housing, in healthcare, helping students, tackling cell phone prices, and real and urgent action on fighting the climate crisis.
There's no plan to balance the books, but after the first year, Singh says his party plans on running deficits which will be $10 billion lower than the Liberals. So how do the political parties compare when it comes to tackling climate change? The four major federal parties, the Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, and Green Party, have all spelled out their plans in their campaign platforms, but which one actually gets us to the Paris target? CBC asked an economic modeling firm to project the impact of each party's climate policies. Peter Armstrong has the details.
Climate's no longer a fringe issue. It's on the streets, in the boardrooms, and on the campaigns. And right now, Canada emits about 715 megatons a year. The Paris target is to get that down to 511 megatons by 2030.
We need radical change. We need deep decarbonization. We need it to start now. We need a full frontal attack on the climate crisis.
So we asked the research firm Navius to figure out how close the party's proposals get to that target. Their model gave us these projections. The Liberals, the Conservatives, and the NDP all make some progress, but none of them come even close to reaching the Paris targets. With the most aggressive climate policy, the Green Party actually beats the target. But the Green Party's plan would slow the economy by the most as well. The Navius model projects economic growth would average around 1.25% between now and 2030. The NDP, the Liberals, and the Conservatives all come in fairly close to one another. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
To read our full comparison of the federal party's carbon strategies, go to cbcnews.ca/carbon platforms. Climate change is a topic we've been hearing a lot on the campaign trail, and it's a topic I heard a lot at our conversation last night at our election town hall. Coming up, we'll bring you some highlights from that conversation, all to do with the environment.
I think everyone here on the panel agrees that climate change is real. It's man-made.
There's no Mr. Deny here tonight?
No Mr. Deny here. You heard it here. It's no denying here. And if we don't do anything about it in the future, we're in a world of trouble.
Canadians between 18 years old and 38 will be the most powerful voting bloc in this federal election. That's according to Abacus data. So CBC Toronto hosted an election town hall last night at Mars Discovery District to explore why young people have the power and what issues matter to their generation. What do you think is the most pressing issue for young Canadians in this election? If you could pick one. I know you're going to say the environment.
Yeah, you read my mind.
Okay.
Climate crisis.
Climate crisis and affordability, because the two are intrinsically tied together.
All right, we're going to get into that.
I agree with Ryan on this. I'm going to have to say climate change and affordability as well.
Interesting.
I'm going to say climate change, but I'm going to also say the just transition to a clean environment, clean economy.
We got a plan for that.
All right. Before we get to the audience, I want to start just going through this panel here. And I want to start with Riley, because you're the youngest, and we're talking about young people, right?
Okay.
This will be your first election where you're eligible to vote. How exciting is that for you to do that on the federal level this time around?
It's very, I've actually already voted. I voted at my returning office. And so I was obviously very excited to vote.
I love it. Both of you guys have already cast your ballot. Wow.
Yeah, eager beavers.
That's excellent.
Vote early, vote often, right?
I'm not only excited about, obviously, a new deal for people that the NDP is proposing, but it's also a historic election with Jagmeet Singh running to be Prime Minister. And I think as we've seen this campaign progress, Jagmeet has done a fantastic job exciting young people and exciting people who haven't seen themselves reflected in the political process, both in terms of representation, but also in terms of what he's talking about. So I really think that for me, I was excited because it's a historic election, and he's speaking to the issues that persist in my community, in my riding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rihanna, the Green Party, who you're supporting, they've been called the one-issue party.
Yes.
It's like, can they govern in this country? Because people worry that they'll be able to handle the issues outside of climate change and green policies that are important to young voters. So what do you have to say, people who say that about the party you're planning to support?
Yes. So you have to understand that climate change affects everyone. So our climate plan actually has, we have plans for everyone. So we have affordable housing. We have the most aggressive affordable housing plan. We have healthcare. We have education. We want to make education free for youth. And so that way you can progress forward and not worry about those debts, those loans, and make it accessible for everyone. So climate change is the root of our plan, but it has to expand out beyond just, it can't just be a one-party thing, one issue, thank you. One issue platform, it affects everything.
Carl, I found it interesting that you said that climate change is important to you as you vote, but you're supporting the Conservatives. Is there something then that your party supports when it comes to that you disagree with?
Yeah, so look, climate change is real. I think everyone here on the panel agrees that climate change is real. It's man-made.
There's no Mr. Deny here tonight?
No Mr. Deny here. You heard it here. It's no denying here. And if we don't do anything about it in the future, we're in a world of trouble. Where I think the panelists and I disagree on the issue of climate change is how do we tackle it. And for me, I think, and the Conservative plan really is, we want to be able to provide sustainable climate change policies without it affecting the cost of living, everyday essentials for hardworking Canadians, right? And that's why, a carbon tax is not the policy that we should be implementing to tackle climate change. It adds costs for commuters, heating, all of that. And so really focusing on innovation, green technology, helping families renovate their houses to be more green. Those are the kind of climate change policies that the Conservatives are offering. And we do have a full plan that was released earlier in May.
Okay. Mustafa, Canadians between 18 years old and 38 will be the most powerful voting bloc this federal election, according to Abacus data. 37% of the electorate. The question is, will they show up at the ballot box? They showed up the last time to support the party you supported. Yeah. Are you expecting that kind of support from this cohort again this election? Because a lot of pundits are saying no. It worked last time, but it may not work for the party this time. They may go a different direction.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think we're definitely a lot more separated now than we were 4 years ago in terms of how millennials and Gen Z are voting. I'm sticking with the same party I voted for last time because the reason I voted for the party wasn't an issue like legalizing marijuana or something like that. It was
I was going to say that, but
hey, you know what? It took me a little bit more to get there, but I'm happy they did. I'm happy they legalized marijuana, and I was proud that that was on the ballot before. But I think that we have to get to a point where we're talking about the entire platform when we're talking about party elections. And so I'm hoping it's not a one-issue election. If we're voting just on climate change, then we're not really talking about what party can really serve all of our interests best. Obviously, we can't. There's no future without dealing with climate change, but we gotta have a real discussion about what all of the policy planks are of a party and see how that fits in with our vision of what Canada we want.
Is there something in your party's platform you think is? I think Jagmeet is talking about education and a university. Is there something in your platforms that you think, Mustafa, that is directed at your cohort?
Yeah, I think a climate plan which is feasible and is doable, as well as increased grants for university education, really makes a difference. And I think a childcare strategy which is also feasible and will actually make an input.
Mustafa.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's a good platform. I'm sorry. It's 85 pages of good stuff.
There you go. There you go.
Can I just add to that too? I think, like tied to the last question about young people coming out to the ballot boxes, I think they're going to come out, and I think they're going to come out because of Jagmeet. And I think there's two reasons for that. Like I mentioned earlier, Jagmeet is really exciting young people, and they're seeing themselves reflected in him.
Is it because he comes across as a younger candidate like Trudeau did last time? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's that, and I think he's relatable. Like he's truly on our side. And to quote Jagmeet, I think young people are excited about not having to choose between Mr. Delay and Mr. Denied.
You knew it was going to happen. Sorry, that was my fault. I was the one who brought it up. Girl, is there one issue you think that your party's put forward that specifically targets this young voter, millennial crowd?
Absolutely, and I guess I'll answer with one question. How many people here in the audience do commute or take public transit?
Yeah.
So almost everyone in the audience, and so Andrew Scheer and the Conservatives have an aggressive plan to help make commuting easier. We're bringing back the tax credit when you take the public transit. We're really helping, and again, this goes back to climate change. We're trying to take cars off the street, encourage especially young people to take public transit more, whether it's the TTC or GO Transit. And I think that's, getting that credit back, reinstating it back from 2015 is an issue that I think young people are going to resonate with here.
All right.
You should get Doug Ford to chime in about that.
I want to remind young voters here today that we're talking about federal election, not a provincial election. And I know Justin Trudeau loves to talk about provincial premiers, and he's free to run for the Ontario Liberal Party if he wishes to do so. But we are in a federal election. Andrew Scheer is different. He's bringing a plan for Canadians to get ahead, putting more money in the hands of hardworking taxpayers, and ensuring that we do have a future for our kids, for our families, while also ensuring that we're not going to be economically burdened by it.
An interesting conversation between four engaged young voters coming up. We'll bring you more from last night's panel, including an issue that is top priority for millennials: affordability.
I'm 27 and I have 3 roommates. I'm married and I have 3 roommates to be able to afford to live in this city.
Affordability is a big issue for young people in this federal election. At CBC's election town hall last night, we discussed some of the party's plans to lower the cost of living. Take a listen.
I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba, so I came from a smaller center, but still people there are struggling. It is a super affordable place, but people are still struggling there, so you can tell it's an issue across the board. We do have a plan to invest in affordable housing. We have an aggressive plan to help people who are homeless, make sure that we get them shelter, homes first, and then we can give them help. We want to invest in jobs. We want to invest in clean energy. We want to invest in the youth because they're going to end up taking up this fight. So we want to make sure that they are ready to take up this fight and they don't have to worry day to day.
All right, we're going to get to your question. Well, let me just get to another Facebook question. This is from Jen N. on Facebook, and she says, let's talk now more about the cost of living. We graduate with enormous amounts of student debt. How are we supposed to get ahead when working multiple jobs just to survive? I'll start with you, Carl.
Yeah, absolutely. So living downtown is, or I guess anywhere right now, it's really expensive. And I'm at a stage in my life where I was going to originally start to look for buying my first property. Then I realized that the price of buying a house in the GTA is unaffordable, to quote that, right? And so I think a lot of the parties, I know the Liberals have, the Conservatives have, and I know the NDP and Green have as well, proposed ways for, young professionals to start with their first-time home buyer credit. I know every party has proposed different plans, but again, when it comes all down to it, it really comes down to budgeting and fiscal responsibility, right? And to give you an example,
people say they're looking for work. They're just looking
well,
for
I mean, to your point, right? I mean, I work full-time right now, but I'm also doing my MBA part-time because it's so expensive. As we know,
that's how you're paying for your MBA. Yes.
And so it really, education, housing, it's an investment in yourself, right? There's always ways, federally and provincially, that can help provide you for your funding, but ultimately, we need to understand that at the end of the day, services cost money, right? Whether we decide to provide affordable housing or first-time home buyer credit, it does cost something, and we need to make sure that we're always wary of the cost of any new policy that's implemented.
I'm 27 and I have 3 roommates. I'm married and I have 3 roommates to be able to afford to live in the city. So we need to address those things, and so we have a plan of a guaranteed income so that people can make ends meet.
Whether it's affordability, healthcare, or climate change that is your top priority, one thing was clear last night: it's just important that you vote.
I would say don't let other parties and pundits and polls scare you into voting for something that you don't believe in. Vote for what you believe in.
We're bringing you highlights from CBC Toronto's election town hall, why young people have the power. There were questions from you at home as well as from the audience. Take a listen.
What is the youth engagement strategy across all your parties?
At U of T, the local MP there is Chrystia Freeland, and her and much of her team actually did walk many people to the polls. I know I'm friends with many of them. I wasn't part of them.
No matter who they were voting for, they're just trying to get them out.
Yeah, walking around campus. You can't canvass at doors on residents, but walking around campus, and if they are citizens that are on campus, whether they are voters with addresses in University Rosedale or outside of the riding, walking them to the advanced polling station and getting them to vote was something that Chrystia Freeland and her team did undergo at U of T.
Regardless of who you choose to vote for, obviously I do care that you vote Conservative, but regardless of who you do vote for, something that's so important and something that's a nonpartisan issue is voter engagement, right? And we've heard so many times over and over that the young generation, the millennials, are the largest voting bloc, and we need to make sure that our voices are heard. The issues that we want to see our politicians tackle, those are some of the most important things, and we're so grateful to be in Canada where we have the democratic right to voice our issues and our concerns. And so that's why I think with the work that you guys do and all the work we do to get out young people to vote is so important.
How is your party trying to engage young voters?
Well, as the youngest on the panel, I think they're doing an excellent job, and I think as a young person who's I'm currently not in school. I like to also approach these kinds of conversations about engaging young people in politics outside of campus too, and I think that that happens when you're speaking about issues that directly impact young people's lives, like the climate emergency, like affordability, and
hook them with the issues that matter to them.
And not just engaging in a sort of tokenistic way, but actually engaging them in your campaigns, like the NDP has been doing. Our campaign in York South-Weston, I'm the manager and I'm 20, and our whole team is full of high school volunteers.
That's great.
And so I think speaking to them with policy is very important.
Rihanna.
Our platform is essentially for the youth, for people who may be struggling, for the people who need a hand up.
I would suggest looking at the Up to Youth website that the Liberals have put together. Those are promises that are fundamentally based around things that are going to help youth. Whether you think they go far enough or whether you think they matter to you are a question that you have to look at when you look at the platform. But I think that's a good place to start. We have an 85-page platform, which is quite long. It's very pretty, though, so if you want to look through that, it's a good read. Yeah, a lot of great pictures. There's some good bullet points, though, that I would suggest looking at. I think that's what it really comes down to, is just looking at the stuff that the party has put together on what our platform is and what we're promising the young voters of today.
Running out of time, but we want to get everybody a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, especially for first-time voters, a common misconception is you're voting for a party, you're voting for the prime minister. If you're not happy with any party's platform, look at your local MP candidate, because at the end of the day, we're running 338 individual elections, and you want to vote for, regardless of which party, you want to vote for a representative that you feel best represents your interests.
I would say don't let other parties and pundits and polls scare you into voting for something that you don't believe in. Vote for what you believe in. And I would say that the NDP is offering one of our most boldest platforms that we've had in decades.
Just vote. If anything, look at a platform, find something that's the closest to you. Vote for them. Be bold, be brave, vote. Essentially, at the end of the day, your voice needs to be heard. If you do not vote, it is not heard. So vote, and then after that, follow up. Get angry. Keep this anger and passion with you and bring it every year, every day.
That is a great way to end this conversation. Thank you to our panelists. Can I give a round of applause? You know what? I'm just impressed at how engaged you four are in this election. You know the issues, you're engaged voters, and I think that hopefully it's catching and people can catch it from you. And we're going to have these young voters to come out this election and vote. No matter who you vote for, it's just so important that we get those millennials, those people that have the power to really choose who becomes our next leader, to actually get out there and vote. Those were just some of the highlights of the conversation. To hear the full hour, head online to our Facebook page. That's at CBC Toronto. Now, after the break, get your dancing shoes ready.
Thousands of Latin dancers are in town this weekend. It's the Canada Salsa and Bachata Congress. I'm Lorenda Redekop, and this is Adriano. He's here from Montreal. He's also a world champion. He's one of several Canadians taking over the world of salsa. I'll have more coming up.
Would you like to dance?
Let's try it out. Woo!
Thousands of Latin dancers are in town this weekend, including some of the world's best. And as it turns out, some of the world's best are from Canada. Lorenda Redekop has more.
The footwork, tricks, and spins will be on display all weekend at the competitions for the Canada Salsa and Bachata Congress. This event features a teacher dancing with a student. The teacher here from Montreal is also a world champion for 3 years running.
Look at the Toronto Raptors, look at tennis. I think Canada's taking over in everything, and salsa is just one of those. So
yeah, I think we just really have a hard-working community. People who are really dedicated. Canada in the last few years has just been soaring in dance.
Another type of dance, bachata, also has world champs from Canada. In this case, Winnipeg. Harold Rancano is half of that couple. He immigrated from Cuba 14 years ago.
I moved to Winnipeg. There was only a couple of dancers there, and we started creating a dance community.
I wasn't in dance as a kid, so at 26 I started dancing. Actually, I saw it in France when I was there for a semester in university, and I just fell in love. We just worked our butts off. We were in the studio all the time.
It's the 17th year in a row for this event, held at the Royal York Hotel and open to the public. The founder says dance schools and teams are popping up in smaller cities and at universities.
We've just seen some amazing Canadian talent, and they're really taking the world by storm. When I first started going to salsa congresses in Puerto Rico in 1999, we didn't know there was other dancers in Canada. We just knew who was in your city. You didn't have access to them. You couldn't Google them or YouTube them and see what they were doing.
Workshops are going on all day Saturday and Sunday. Some of the top dancers are among the instructors, so people will have the chance to learn from a world champion. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
And that was a perfect assignment for our Lorenda, because as you saw there, sir, she's pretty good at that.
Yeah, I did see that.
She's very good.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. If you're going down there, though, I guess don't plan to drive on the Gardner,
Nope.
right?
No.
But it looks pretty cool to check out. And by the way, if you plan to walk there, it's going to be a great weekend. The rain that I talked about, really, it's tapering off by sort of late morning, and then after that, we're looking at generally sunny skies across the weekend. So there's a look at your headline. Sunshine returns, but cooler temperatures on the way. Should say seasonal temperatures on the way. 16 degrees right now. However, earlier today we were up at 19 degrees in the city of Toronto. We've got some showers that are moving in right now. Well, not quite right now, but they're in southwestern Ontario right now, slowly pushing their way eastward. It's actually part of a bigger system. This one, if you had seen this on the news, was bringing with it snowfall, quite a bit of snowfall in southern Manitoba. For us, though, it's just going to be a rainfall event, although it does drag down temperatures a little bit, and that's along the along the cold front. So rain showers start tonight around 3 a.m. By about 11 a.m. tomorrow, they taper off. Certainly by the time we hit the early afternoon hours, we're done with the rain showers, and in fact, by the later afternoon hours, a mix of sun and cloud to mostly sunny skies. Sunday morning, sunshine as well. We may see a few very light spotty showers Sunday late night for the city of Toronto and Golden Horseshoe. However, earlier in the day and Sunday to the north, up around Cottage Country, seeing some on and off showers. But for the GTA, generally speaking, should stay dry. Tonight's rainfall event, about 5 to 10 millimeters of rain expected with this one for areas around the Golden Horseshoe. Temperatures are going to come down, though. Tonight, 12 degrees in the city of Toronto. That's just above seasonal, but as we move to tomorrow, it doesn't change much. Temperatures sit steady around 12, 13 degrees, and that's about a degree below the seasonal mark, but we get the mix of sun and cloud by the time we hit the afternoon. Next 5 days plays out like this. 13 for Saturday. Sunday, nice day, 14 degrees. That's bang on seasonal. Monday, a little bit cooler, although again, a mix of sun and cloud. As we head into next week, it looks like the next shot of rain not coming until Tuesday night into Wednesday. Dwight.
Thank you, Nick. That is it for our show tonight. Thank you for watching. Talia Ricci has your next local newscast at 11. Have
Thanks,
a
guys.
great
Have a good
long weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here on Monday.